I've got
I
a
end
lot
up.
of time on my hands these days too, so
It's
it
hard
was
for me.
that
I
and
don't.
watching live births. I now love watching a live birth.
Really.
Yeah, because it like psychs me out.
It psychs you up.
No, psychs me out. I'm like, oh, it's really interesting. I mean, just looking, I mean, you're bringing it up with Fulham and, with the Jaguars, everything that you guys juggle in general. I mean, for your family, how did that conversation go down when you're like, I want to start a wrestling promotion?
Not well. It didn't go
Really?
well. He did not support this at all. And I put the business plan together, and then I was pretty much ready to commit to it. And again, he was very cold feet, and we had some very uncomfortable, loud conversations where I told him this was going to be great. And he's been so cool about it, my dad. He's the smartest person I've ever known. He knew nothing about wrestling, and now all of a sudden, because he's the smartest business person, now that he's paying attention to wrestling, he's learning a lot, and he makes really observant points sometimes, even though it's not his thing. He loves AEW. AEW is his thing, but he was never a wrestling fan before AEW. I have a lot of people close to me that are like that are intellectuals, like the highest IQ people I know that kind of look down on wrestling. Now they watch AEW and they see it, and they're like, wow, I never watched wrestling before. But to be fair, I told him if you tried watching wrestling 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't have liked what you were watching.
Sure.
And I try not to insult the audience's intelligence. I know we don't do perfect, but I try to maintain a sense of logic and not do ridiculous stuff all the time, even though sometimes you do some ridiculous stuff. So
I think people can really get a different respect for wrestling though, because I think wrestling has always sort of been, kind of regarded as like that black sheep of entertainment or whatever. People snub their nose up at it, but once you really start to understand the psychology that goes behind it, the athletics behind it, it's impossible to not develop a respect for what the companies are doing, what the talent is doing. So it's really cool when you can see new people jump on board and become fans, and they start asking questions, and eventually they start talking carny. It's one thing after another.
that's the crazy thing is how quickly people learn it, and they start reading, forums online. They go on Reddit, they go on Twitter, and they learn a lot. But my best friend is a Harvard math major. He's got a degree from Harvard in math, and he's a genius. He's one of the smartest people I know. And same as my dad, he paid no attention to wrestling. And I would always try to get these people to watch wrestling. Now this is not an expression you would want to use during COVID, but I tried to spread the love of wrestling like a virus. Anybody who was around me, I would try to infect them with loving wrestling. And some people, I made a lot of fans in my lifetime in school, especially, and they wouldn't watch wrestling when I wasn't around as much. Some of them became like lifelong fans, but there were other people that they would watch it with me, and they kind of knew what was going on, but I would try and bring people into it. And
So
my father was never someone I succeeded on.
what is your go-to match when you're telling someone to get into it? You're like, hey, just go watch this and then come back and talk to me. What's like your quick knee-jerk reaction to that?
It's changed a lot over time. When I was real young, it might have been like uh, Steamboat versus Savage from WrestleMania 3, or it might have been Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect from King of the Ring 93. I think then I got Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat matches, and I would have said those, Flair and Steamboat, maybe from the Chi-Town Rumble was a tape I had when I was young, before I'd even seen the Music City Showdown in Nashville or the New Orleans Clash. But then later, I might have said the John Cena Brock Lesnar match where they beat the hell out of each other.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one, not the short one, not the short beating. I'm talking about Brock's first match back, Extreme Rules 2012, where he absolutely just beat out of John.
Those
That
are some
was
big meaty men beating the hell out of each other.
That was something, and it wasn't for everybody, but it was a lot safer than the match he had with Randy at SummerSlam, I thought. And it was also still the idea I thought they were trying to create, that it was like a dangerous situation. And then I would have said a lot of matches that involved the Young Bucks and the Golden Lovers and those people. I got really into around 2013, 14. I'd seen the Golden Lovers, and I really liked the Young Bucks a lot. And I thought that, hey, these guys are going to be like the next Hardy Boys in 2009, 2010, That's what I thought, and I think a lot of wrestling fans felt that way. They've come to transcend tag team wrestling, and they're so important. And for our division, so many of the teams that are here and the emphasis we put on it, so much of it comes down to the Young Bucks and their belief in it and how great they are as tag team wrestlers and their minds for tag team wrestling. It's so great.
I've got a Golden Lovers shirt upstairs I keep forgetting to take out. I couldn't technically wear it for a very long time, so I think I got to bust that thing out.
That's great. I love the Golden Lovers, and I love that stuff is great. And the G1s of that time were great. So before AEW, these are some things I might have pointed out. And now if people ask me to point to matches, I would point to Revolution. And I would say, watch that show bell to bell. I think it's the best wrestling pay-per-view I've ever seen. You can't top a show with a better closing moment or a more satisfying conclusion than John winning the title, the eye patch thing being a bit of playing possum, the speech he gave at the end to the Chicago crowd, which is the perfect place for us to do it because Chicago has been so important in the development of AEW. And just start to finish, I think Young Bucks versus Kenny and Hangman is one of the greatest matches and the culmination of that part of the story, but a story that kept going and really just the end of that chapter, not the end of the story. I think Cody and MJF also, that was the culmination of a great story and something we haven't gone back to that someday I think we will maybe see those guys cross paths again. But Cody and MJF was a great match that ended a really, really, really important story for us. Orange Cassidy and Pac, something I was very proud of.
Oh my God, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. I had that one up my sleeve for several months, and nobody knew Orange Cassidy and Pac were working the pay-per-view. And then people would ask me like a month, like, well, what's Pac doing?
How's that going to work? Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's going to be Orange Cassidy versus Pac. And like, wait, what? And because the build was very subtle because they had done stuff. There had been like Pac versus Trent. There had been a 6-man tag before I had this Death Triangle thing I'd conceived with Pac and the Lucha Brothers. I had Pac just with TH2, Jack and Angelico. So there would be partners against Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. So they'd like had some matches. I was going to be able to build good video packages and tell some backstory. But really the key thing was when Pac was at his most angry moment after the Iron Man match with Kenny is the perfect time for Orange Cassidy to come out there. And I was in catering in Kansas City with Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends and Tony Schiavone before their interviews that they would do later in the show. And I was telling him that after Chuck says this line that I wanted to say, you know, that Orange Cassidy is going to try at Revolution, I was promising the guys, this crowd is going to chant, he's going to try, he's going to try, he's going to try. And they did. It was pretty cool. So, and that's, I love that match. And it was really fun working on that. And Darby and Sammy, another story that is a satisfying conclusion. I mentioned Savage and Steamboat earlier, and I'd be lying if I said that, Darby getting his throat smashed with a skateboard wasn't inspired by that.
Yeah.
And there's so much great stuff on that show, but those are some of the great things. And that's my favorite wrestling pay-per-view. So now I would probably point someone to Revolution, maybe give them the countdown to Revolution so they get all the stories in and understand what was going on with John and the Inner Circle, how, he'd rejected their offer and the car and stolen the car and they took his eye out. And then
I still get asked to this day if we still own that car.
That's my dad's car.
I know.
Yeah. John's driven it a number of times now, though. He's done some donuts in it, and hopefully Dad's not listening to your show.
I know, right? Hey. Hi, guys. To stay in on the know on all things oral sessions, please like, subscribe, share. Pass off the word to your mother, your father, a friend, a grandfather, a grandmother, somebody at the grocery store, whoever you want. Keep spreading the good word. Please help to support your girl and subscribe. Just hit the button. Just hit the button and subscribe to Oral Sessions.